The morning sun of Velshera cast long shadows across the bonding arena. Mira Chen stood in line with 40 other cadets, her small frame dwarfed by the aliens surrounding her. To her left, a Corinthian warrior stood 9 feet tall, his blue scales gleaming like polished metal. To her right, a Veltorian female adjusted her ceremonial armor, 4 arms moving in perfect coordination. Mira was 12 years old and barely 5 feet tall. She looked like a child among giants. Pathetic, someone muttered in galactic common. The humans send us children now. Mira didn't respond. She'd heard worse during her 3 months at the academy. Earth was the newest species admitted to the Galactic Concordance, and many still questioned whether humans belonged here at all. The dragon bonding program was the ultimate test. If humans could partner with war dragons, they'd prove themselves worthy. If they failed, she pushed the thought away. Master Trainer Kovacs stood at the arena's center, his 4 arms crossed over his broad chest. He was a legend, 300 years of service, veteran of a dozen wars, bonded to Voidrender, one of the most decorated dragons in Concordance history. Cadets, his voice boomed across the arena. Today you face the greatest honor any warrior can receive. Today, you meet your dragons. A massive gate began to rise at the far end of the arena. The ground trembled. Remember your training, Kovacs continued. Dragons respect strength, show dominance, show power. Show them you are worthy to command them in battle. The Corinthian beside Mira pounded his chest and roared. Other cadets followed suit, displaying their species' traditional warrior calls. The noise was deafening. Mira stayed quiet. The first dragon emerged from the shadows, and Mira's breath caught. She'd seen images, watched videos, but nothing prepared her for the reality. The creature was magnificent, 40 feet from snout to tail, scales the color of storm clouds, eyes that glowed like molten gold. Wings folded against its sides could span a small building when extended. This was a juvenile. Adult dragons were 3 times this size. The dragon's name was Stormbreaker. He approached the cadets slowly, deliberately. His massive head swung back and forth, studying each warrior. The Corinthian stepped forward, pounded his chest again, and bellowed a challenge. Stormbreaker's eyes narrowed. He moved closer, lowered his head until he was eye level with the warrior, and huffed. A blast of hot air knocked the Corinthian back 2 steps. Then the dragon moved on. He's testing them, whispered a human cadet behind Mira. Looking for the right match. 3 more dragons entered the arena. Silverwing, who chose a Veltorian warrior after a brief dominance display. Dawncaller, who circled twice before selecting an Eshtar with powerful psychic abilities. Cloud Dancer, who tested 5 cadets before finally nodding to a Corinthian female. The bonding process was intense. Each cadet had to prove themselves worthy through displays of strength, courage, and combat prowess. It was beautiful and terrifying to watch. 15 cadets bonded, then 20, then 30. Mira waited. Kovacs's expression grew more satisfied with each successful bonding. When he glanced at Mira and the few remaining cadets, his smile widened. Most of those left were humans. Perhaps, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, some species are simply not meant for this honor. Then the final gate opened. The dragon that emerged was different. Darker scales, almost black with hints of deep red like dying embers. His movements were more careful, more controlled than the others. The handlers called him Ash-Wing Sentinel. But among themselves, they used another name, Ember. Ah. Kovacs's smile became sharp. Ember. How? Appropriate. Mira heard the warning in his tone. Around her, other trainers exchanged glances. One whispered to another in a language she didn't understand, but the meaning was clear. This dragon was trouble. Ember walked past the remaining cadets slowly. A Veltorian male stepped forward, arms spread wide in a dominance pose. Ember didn't even look at him. An Eshtar tried to establish a psychic connection. Ember's mental shields were like stone walls. The dragon continued forward, straight toward Mira. She felt her heart hammering but forced herself to stay calm. Every instructor had drilled the same lesson into them. Show strength, show dominance, show no fear. She'd watched 30 cadets do exactly that. But something felt wrong about it. Ember stopped 5 feet away. His golden eyes studied her intently. Mira could feel the weight of that gaze. The intelligence behind it. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was a person in a different form. The arena fell silent. "Display your strength, Humyn," Kovacs called out. "Show the dragon you are worthy to command him." Mira didn't move. She thought about her dog back home, a German shepherd named Atlas. She'd raised him from a puppy. Her father had wanted to use dominance training, the old methods, but Mira had researched newer approaches. Partnership, trust, mutual respect. Atlas had become the gentlest, most loyal companion she'd ever known. "Cadet Chen," Kovacs's voice was sharper now. "Follow protocol." Ember took another step closer. His head was the size of a small car, teeth like daggers visible when he breathed. One wrong move, and he could end her in seconds. Mira slowly sank to her knees. Gasps echoed around the arena. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. "She's submitting. The Humyn is submitting to the dragon." Disgraceful. Mira ignored them all. She kept her eyes on Ember. But her posture was relaxed. Open. Not submission. Not dominance. Something else entirely. "I'm not here to command you," she said softly. "I'm here to be your friend, if you'll have me." Ember's eyes widened slightly. His head tilted, like Atlas did when he heard something curious. Then the dragon did something unprecedented in 300 years of Academy history. He folded his massive wings against his sides, lowered his entire body to the ground, and sat, just like a loyal dog waiting for his human to come home. His tail curled around Mira protectively, carefully, ensuring the spiked tip didn't come near her. His head lowered until it rested on the ground beside her, close enough that she could touch his snout if she reached out. Mira lifted her hand slowly and placed it on his scales. They were warm, surprisingly smooth. "Hello, Ember," she whispered. "It's nice to meet you." The dragon's eyes closed briefly, then opened again. A low sound rumbled from his chest, not a growl, but something else. Something that sounded almost like a purr. Every trainer in the arena stood frozen. Kovacs's professional smile had completely disappeared. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. His forearms had uncrossed, hands clenching and unclenching. "Impossible," he breathed. "In 300 years, dragons don't. They don't just sit," finished another trainer, her voice filled with wonder. A dragon approached from the side pens, Void Render, Kovacs's own bonded partner. The ancient dragon moved to where he could see Ember and Mira clearly. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on the scene. Kovacs noticed and felt something twist in his chest. In 40 years of partnership, Void Render had never looked at him the way Ember was looking at this small human girl, never with such obvious, unconditional trust. "This is wrong," Kovacs said, his voice tight. "The dragon must be defective. Broken somehow." But even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't true. Ember's eyes were sharp, alert, intelligent. There was nothing broken about him, which meant the problem was something else entirely. Something the Concordance had been doing wrong for 3 centuries. Mira stood slowly, and Ember rose with her, his movements matching hers, like they'd been partners for years instead of minutes. The girl looked small beside the massive dragon. But there was something right about the picture they made together, something that made every other bonding in the arena look forced by comparison. "Trainers," Kovacs's voice was cold now, "take the Humyn, and her, dragon, to isolation, for observation. Something is very wrong here." As handlers moved forward nervously, Ember's eyes tracked them, but he made no aggressive moves. He simply stayed close to Mira, protective but calm, and in that moment, everything the Concordance thought they knew about dragons began to crack. The isolation chamber was large but empty. White walls, observation windows on all sides, and a single door that locked from the outside. Mira sat on the floor with her back against Ember's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "They think I did something wrong," she said quietly. Ember rumbled softly in response. After 3 hours together, Mira was beginning to understand his sounds. This one meant comfort, reassurance. Through the observation windows, she could see trainers and scientists gathering. They pointed at screens, argued with each other, and kept looking at her and Ember like they were a puzzle that refused to make sense. In the main observation room, Kolvax stood with his arms crossed, watching the monitors. Commander Shirala, head of the Academy's Science Division, stood beside him. Her silver scales reflected the screen light as she reviewed the bonding footage for the 10th time. "There must be an explanation," Kolvax insisted. "Humans are new to the Concordance. Perhaps they brought some technology, some device that controls dragon behavior. We've scanned the human child 17 times. Shirala replied calmly. "No technology. No implants. No chemical enhancers. Nothing. Then what?" Shirala turned to face him. "Perhaps the question is not what the human did, but what we've been doing wrong." Kolvax's mandibles clicked sharply. "Our methods have worked for 300 years. Have they?" Shirala pulled up another screen. "Look at these bonding strength readings. This is your partnership with Voidrender. 40 years together, the highest-rated bond in the Academy." Numbers and graphs filled the display. "Now look at this." She pulled up Mira and Ember's readings. 3 hours together, Kolvax stared. The synchronization levels were higher. Neural pattern matching, hormonal responses, stress reduction indicators, all of them showed a deeper connection than he'd achieved in 4 decades. That must be an error. I checked 6 times. It's not an error." Shirala's voice softened. "Kolvax, I think we need to consider that everything we've taught about dragon bonding might be fundamentally flawed." Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. In the isolation chamber, Ember's head shot up. His scales rippled, and a low growl built in his throat. Mira felt his muscles tense beneath her. "What's wrong?" she asked. The door burst open. Guards rushed in, weapons raised but not aimed. Behind them came 3 members of the Concordance High Council, their robes marking them as officials of the highest rank. "The human child will be removed immediately," announced Council Member Thexaron, a tall Veltorian with gray scales marking his advanced age. "She will be questioned about her methods. The dragon will be returned to standard training protocols." "No." Mira stood quickly. "You can't separate us. We can and we will. You have corrupted a military asset with unauthorized techniques." Ember moved between Mira and the council members, not aggressive, but protective. His wings spread slightly, creating a barrier. The guards' weapons hummed to life. "Stand down," Thexaron commanded. "Dragon, return to your handlers immediately." Ember didn't move. "This is exactly the problem," Thexaron continued. "The dragon no longer follows proper commands. The human has damaged its training in mere hours. This cannot be allowed to spread." "Spread?" Mira asked. Shirala's voice came through the chamber's speakers. "Let me show her, council member. She deserves to understand what she started." The chamber's main wall lit up with footage from across the academy. Other human cadets had arrived over the past week, part of Earth's second class of candidates. They'd been observing from the visitor areas during the bonding ceremony. The footage showed what happened after Mira and Ember were taken away. A human boy, maybe 14, had approached one of the unbonded dragons. Instead of the traditional dominance display, he'd sat down and simply talked to the creature. The dragon, confused at first, had eventually settled beside him. A human girl had offered food to another dragon, hand outstretched peacefully. The dragon had accepted it gently, then pressed his head against her palm. 2 more humans, 3 more, 5, every single one forming the same type of calm, peaceful bond that Mira had with Ember. 7 new bonds in 3 hours, Shirala reported. All human-dragon pairs. All showing the same pattern. High synchronization. Low stress. Mutual trust. This is contamination, Thexeron snapped. The humans are destroying centuries of military protocol. Or proving it was wrong, Kolvax said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The master trainer stepped into the isolation chamber. Voidrender followed without being summoned, which itself was unusual. The ancient dragon's eyes were fixed on Ember and Mira. I have trained dragons for 300 years, Kolvax said slowly. I have bonded with the finest dragon in our fleet. I am considered the greatest trainer in Concordance history. He paused. And watching this human child for 3 hours has taught me that I've been doing it wrong the entire time. Kolvax, Thexeron's voice was sharp. You cannot possibly. When was the last time Voidrender chose to follow me? Kolvax interrupted. When did he last seek my presence without a command? When has he ever looked at me the way that dragon looks at that child? Silence filled the chamber. Voidrender moved closer to Mira and Ember. The old dragon lowered his massive head, studying them both. Then he made a sound, soft. Questioning, Ember responded with a similar sound. Some form of dragon communication that humans didn't understand. What are they saying? Mira whispered. Shirala checked her translation monitors. Dragon language is complex, but Voidrender is asking how Ember feels, and Ember is saying. She paused, disbelief in her voice. He's saying he feels happy, safe, like he finally came home. Kolvax felt something break inside his chest. 40 years. 40 years of partnership. And Voidrender had never expressed feeling safe with him. The science team has been analyzing the bonding process, Shirala continued. We've discovered something remarkable. Humans produce chemical signatures, pheromones, hormonal patterns that are similar to how dragons communicate affection and family bonds among themselves. She pulled up more data. When humans approach without aggression, when they show what they call kindness, dragons recognize it. It's similar to how dragon mothers bond with their young, how dragon siblings bond with each other. It's not a master-weapon relationship, it's family. Ridiculous, Thexeron said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dragons are military assets. Weapons. Tools of war. They are intelligent beings, Mira said quietly. Everyone looked at her. They think. They feel. They choose. You've just been forcing them to choose you for so long that you forgot they had a choice at all. The child speaks truth, said a new voice. Another dragon entered the chamber. This one was older than Voidrender, larger, with scars covering his dark scales. Mira had heard about him, Shadowrender, the most aggressive dragon in the academy. He'd been isolated for 20 years after refusing 3 different bondings. He walked straight to Mira and lowered his head. She reached out slowly and touched his snout. The ancient dragon's eyes closed, and that same purring rumble filled the chamber. How? Thexeron breathed. Because she's not trying to control him, Kolvax said. She's just being kind. The concept seemed to shake the foundation of everything they knew. This changes nothing, Thexeron declared. The High Council will not allow this practice to spread. Traditional bonding methods will continue. The humans will be expelled from the program. Then you'll have no dragons, Ember said. Everyone froze. Dragons rarely spoke aloud in Galactic Common. When they did, it meant something serious. The others have been talking, Ember continued, his voice deep and resonant. We have all felt it. Something different. Something right. If you force us back to the old ways, if you take away the humans who remember how to treat us as partners instead of weapons. He looked at each council member in turn. We will refuse to bond. All of us. You cannot refuse, Thexeron said. You are military property. We are living beings, Voidrender spoke now, his voice even deeper than Ember's. We have chosen to serve because we are loyal. Because we believed it was right. But today we learned that service and suffering are not the same thing. Kolvax stepped forward. The humans have shown us something we forgot. Something we should have known all along. He looked at Voidrender. I'm sorry. For 40 years, I commanded you. I never once asked what you wanted, what you needed. I treated you as a weapon when you deserved to be treated as a friend. The old dragon's eyes met his trainer's eyes. Something passed between them. 40 years of service, of battles fought together, of lonely nights where neither truly understood the other. It's not too late, Mira said softly. It's never too late to start being kind. Texeron's expression was unreadable. The council will need to discuss this. But know this, human child, you have challenged 3 centuries of tradition. There will be consequences. There will be a trial. Another council member added. You will prove that your method can create warriors as strong as our traditional bonds. If you fail, all humans will be expelled, and things will return to how they were. And if we succeed? Mira asked. Then perhaps, Texeron said quietly, everything will change. The storm crossing had a name that made experienced pilots nervous. It was a region of space where 3 stellar winds collided, creating a cosmic maelstrom of radiation, plasma storms, and gravity wells that could tear a ship apart. Deep within its center sat an ancient beacon, placed there centuries ago as the ultimate test of Dragon Rider partnership. No first-year cadet had ever successfully retrieved it. Mira stood in the briefing room, surrounded by academy instructors and council members. A holographic display showed the swirling chaos of the storm crossing. All reds and purples and angry oranges. The rules are simple, Texeron announced. You and your dragon will enter the storm crossing, retrieve the beacon, and return. You have 6 hours. Communication systems will not function in the interference. You will rely entirely on your bond. And if I fail? Mira asked. Then humanity's experiment ends here. All human cadets will be expelled. The dragons will return to traditional training methods. Mira looked at the hologram. The storm looked angry, violent, like nature itself was having a tantrum. When do I leave? 2 days, Kovacs said. You'll need time to prepare, to train. I'll help you, he added quietly when the others had left. If you'll let me. Mira turned to him. Why? The council wants me to fail. No, they want to believe their way is correct. But He paused, mandibles clicking softly. I spent 3 hours with Voidrender yesterday. Not training, not commanding, just sitting, like you do with Ember. His voice cracked slightly. He told me things. About how he feels. About what the last 40 years have been like for him. I never knew. I never asked. What did he say? That he was lonely. That he served because he is loyal. But that loyalty and happiness are not the same. Kovacs met her eyes. I have been a terrible partner to the finest dragon in the fleet. I want to learn. But first, I need you to succeed, for all of us. The next 2 days were intense. Kovacs taught Mira everything he knew about flying through dangerous space, how to read the plasma currents, how to use gravity wells to slingshot forward, how to protect against radiation bursts. But his teaching method had changed. He didn't command. He suggested. He explained. He asked what she thought might work. Other human cadets came to watch. 7 of them now, each bonded with dragons who had chosen them with that same peaceful trust. They'd become a small family, these outcasts who'd accidentally started a revolution. You're carrying all of us with you, said Marcus, the 14-year-old who'd been the second human to bond. His dragon, Skydancer, nuzzled his shoulder. No pressure, though. Mira laughed despite her nerves. Thanks, that helps a lot. Ember pressed his head against her back gently. Through their growing connection, she felt his emotions, nervousness, yes, but also determination. And something else. Pride. He was proud to be her partner. We can do this, she whispered to him. Together, the morning of the trial, the entire academy gathered at the launch platform. News had spread across the concordance. The holofeed showed thousands watching from dozens of worlds. The small human who'd challenged 3 centuries of tradition. Texeron stood at the platform's center. Cadet Mira Chen. Dragon Ashwing Sentinel, called Ember. You have 6 hours from launch. May your partnership prove true. It wasn't quite a blessing, but it wasn't a curse either. That was something, at least. Mira climbed onto Ember's back. They'd practiced this, finding the right position where she could hold on securely but also move freely. No saddle, no control harness, just trust. "Ready?" she asked. Ember's wings spread wide, powerful and magnificent. His answer came through their bond, a feeling of absolute certainty. Together, they could face anything. He launched. The flight to the storm crossing took 20 minutes. Mira watched the swirling chaos grow larger ahead of them. From outside, it looked almost beautiful, like an angry painting of light and color. But she knew the reality was far more dangerous. "Remember," Kovacs's voice came through her communicator. "Once you enter, I can't guide you. Trust each other. Trust your instincts." "We will," Mira said. "Thank you for everything. Good luck, little one." Then they entered the storm, and the communicator went dead. The first wave of turbulence hit immediately. Plasma winds buffeted Ember from all sides, trying to throw him off course. Normal protocol said to fight through, to force your way forward with strength and determination. Mira closed her eyes and felt for Ember's instincts. What did he want to do? She felt his desire to flow with the current, not against it, to ride the wind like a leaf on a stream. "Yes," she whispered. "Do it." Ember stopped fighting and let the plasma wind carry them. They spiraled left, then right, moving with the storm instead of against it. It felt wrong, like giving up control, but somehow they were moving faster, using less energy. In the observation center, Kovacs watched the sensor data with amazement. They're not following standard protocol at all. "The cadet is failing," Dexeron said. "No," Shirala corrected. "Look at their energy expenditure. They're using half the power of normal crossings. They're working with the storm, not fighting it." Deeper into the chaos they flew. A gravity well tried to pull them down. Mira felt Ember's fear. This was the dangerous part. Get caught in that pull, and they'd be crushed. But there was something else. A current of energy running perpendicular to the pull. If they could catch it, Ember felt her thought, and immediately understood. He tucked his wings and dropped, falling toward the gravity well. Then, at the last second, he spread his wings and caught the perpendicular current. It shot them forward like a slingshot, past the danger and deeper into the storm. "Brilliant," Kovacs breathed. They flew for 2 hours, navigating by instinct and trust. Mira didn't tell Ember what to do. She felt what he was sensing, added her human perspective, and together, they made choices. It was like a dance where both partners led and followed simultaneously. Then Mira saw it, another dragon ahead, caught in a radiation stream. The plasma was burning its wings. The rider, a Corinthian named Vortok, was screaming commands, trying to force his dragon to fly out. The dragon was panicking, making it worse. "That's Vortok." Mira recognized him from training. "He's in trouble," protocol said to continue. "Complete your own mission." Every cadet knew the rules. Ember was already changing course. "Wait," Mira said. "If we help him, we might not have time to get the beacon and return." Ember's response came through their bond, a feeling of absolute certainty. They couldn't leave someone to suffer. Not when they could help. "You're right," Mira agreed. "Let's get him." They flew closer. The radiation stream was deadly, but there was a safe approach from below. Mira could see it, the way the currents flowed. But she needed Vortok's dragon to calm down first. "Ember, can you talk to him?" Ember released a series of subsonic calls, sounds too low for humans to hear, but that dragons understood instinctively. The panicking dragon's head turned toward them. Ember called again, his tone soothing, calming. In the observation center, the monitoring team watched in shock as the trapped dragon stopped thrashing. "What is happening?" Dexeron demanded. "The dragons are communicating," Shirala said. Her voice filled with wonder. "Ember is teaching the other dragon how to calm himself." Vortok's dragon, Storm Chaser, began to breathe more steadily. His wings stopped their frantic beating. "Now," Mira whispered. Ember dove under the radiation stream and came up beside Storm Chaser. Together, The two dragons flew in synchronization, following Ember's lead. He guided them through a gap in the radiation, a safe path that only became visible when you weren't panicking. They emerged on the other side. Storm Chaser's wings were burned but functional. Vortok looked at Mira in shock. You saved us. Why? Because that's what partners do, Mira said simply. Can you make it back? Vortok nodded slowly. Yes. Thank you, Humyn. As he flew toward the exit, Mira checked their time. 4 hours gone. They had 2 hours to find the beacon and return. We need to hurry, she said. But Ember was already moving. Now that Storm Chaser was safe, he flew with renewed purpose. They dove deeper into the storm's center. Where the beacon waited, the center was strangely calm. In the eye of the storm, space was almost peaceful. The beacon floated there, an ancient silver sphere covered in concordant symbols. Ember grabbed it gently in his claws. 1 hour to get back, Mira said. Can we make it? Ember's confidence flowed through their bond. Together, they'd learned the storm's patterns. They knew its rhythms now. The return journey was faster. They used everything they'd learned riding the plasma currents, using gravity wells for speed, flowing instead of fighting. It felt effortless, natural. They emerged from the storm crossing with 10 minutes to spare. The academy platform erupted in cheers. Human cadets hugged each other. Even some alien instructors were applauding. Vortok was waiting at the landing pad. When Ember touched down, the Corinthian warrior walked forward and placed his fist over his heart. A gesture of deepest respect in his culture. I told the council what happened, he said. You risked your mission to save me. That is true warrior spirit. True partnership. Thexaeron approached, his expression unreadable. You retrieved the beacon. You passed the trial. He paused. And you demonstrated something I did not expect. Compassion under pressure. Collaboration between dragons. These are not weaknesses, as I assumed. They are strengths. Kolvax stepped forward, Voidrender beside him. The council wishes to observe further. You will face one more test. What test? Mira asked. The war games begin in 3 days. Mock combat between dragon rider pairs. Kolvax's mandibles clicked. I have volunteered to be your opponent. 300 years of experience against 3 weeks of partnership. The council believes this will prove that traditional bonding creates superior warriors. He leaned closer and whispered, prove them wrong. Please. Mira looked up at this ancient warrior who was trying to change everything he'd ever believed. She saw the hope in his eyes. We will, she promised. But not the way they expect. The academy's training halls buzzed with nervous energy. In 3 days, the war games would begin, a spectacle watched by millions across the concordance. Mock combat between dragon rider pairs, designed to showcase skill, strategy, and the strength of their bonds. Mira sat in the human cadets' common room, surrounded by her fellow Earthborn students. 7 humans, 7 dragons, all watching her with hope and fear mixed together. Kolvax has never lost a war game, Marcus said quietly. Not in 300 years. He's not trying to beat me, Mira replied. He's trying to help us prove something. By fighting you in front of the entire galaxy? By showing everyone what's possible. Mira looked at each of them. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about changing minds. But doubt still gnawed at her. How could she face a warrior with 3 centuries of experience? What could she possibly show them in 3 days? That evening, she walked to the dragon pens alone. Ember was resting, his massive form curled in the moonlight of Velshara. But she wasn't going to see Ember. She was going to see Voidrender. The ancient dragon's pen was separate from the others, befitting his status as the Academy's most decorated warrior. Mira approached slowly, carrying a bag of the dried meat dragons favored. Voidrender's golden eyes opened as she neared. He watched her approach but didn't move. Hello, Mira said softly. I brought you something. I hope that's okay. She sat down near the pen's entrance, not too close, giving him space. Then she simply started talking. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Everyone's counting on me. And I don't know if I'm strong enough. Kolvax is amazing. You're amazing. You've fought in real wars. I'm just a kid who's good with dogs." Voidrender tilted his massive head, listening. "But I think maybe that's okay. Being scared, I mean. Ember gets scared too. We're scared together sometimes, and then we figure it out together." She paused. "Is that weird? Being scared but doing it anyway?" The ancient dragon made a low rumbling sound. Then, slowly, he moved closer. His massive head came to rest near the pen's bars, close enough that Mira could touch him if she reached through. She offered a piece of dried meat through the bars. Voidrender took it gently, far more carefully than she'd expected from such a powerful creature. "You're lonely too, aren't you?" she whispered. "Just like Kolvax. Both of you. Partners for 40 years. But never really talking. Never really understanding each other." Voidrender's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, there was something in them, an ancient sadness, that made Mira's heart hurt. "It's not too late," she said, "for either of you." Footsteps echoed behind her. Mira turned to see Kolvax standing in the shadows, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Long enough to hear what you said. Long enough to watch my dragon of 40 years accept comfort from a child he's known for a week." Kolvax's voice was thick with emotion. "You're right. We've been lonely. Both of us. And I never realized until I watched you with Ember." He approached slowly and stood beside the pen. Voidrender looked at him, and something passed between them. 40 years of unspoken feelings, of duty and service, and a bond that existed but had never been allowed to grow. "I don't know how to do this," Kolvax said quietly. "For 300 years, I've been taught that strength means dominance, control, command. You're asking me to forget everything I know." "Not forget," Mira said. "Just add something new. All that strength and experience you have, imagine it combined with trust. Real trust. The kind where you don't have to command because your partner wants to help you anyway." Kolvax looked at Voidrender. May I sit with you?" The dragon's response was immediate. He shifted, creating space beside him, an invitation. The legendary master trainer sat down on the ground beside his dragon for the first time in 4 decades. Voidrender's wing extended slightly, draping over his rider like a protective blanket. Mira saw Kolvax's shoulders begin to shake. The ancient warrior was crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For 40 years, I've commanded you, ordered you, treated you like a weapon. But you're not a weapon. You're my friend. You've always been my friend. And I was too blind to see it." Voidrender made a deep, resonant sound, a dragon's purr. His head lowered until it rested against Kolvax's side. Mira quietly stood and began to walk away, giving them privacy. But Kolvax called after her. "Wait, I need to tell you something." He wiped his eyes. "The Council has received reports from across the Concordance, other dragon academies, other training facilities. The dragons are refusing to bond with new riders using the old methods. They're demanding what they're calling the human way." "What?" "But word spreads fast. There are videos of you and Ember, of the other human cadets. Dragons have been watching. And now they're saying no." Kolvax's mandibles clicked. "The Council is terrified. If dragons refuse to bond, the Concordance loses its primary military and exploration force. They're blaming humans for corrupting the dragons." "We didn't corrupt them," Mira said. "We just reminded them that they have a choice." "I know, but the hardliners in the Council see it as a threat. Admiral Zethros is arriving tomorrow. He wants to shut down the human program entirely and return to forced bonding protocols." "Forced?" Mira's voice rose. "You can't force someone to be your friend. They don't see dragons as someone. They see them as property. Tools." Kolvax stood, his expression grim. "The war games aren't just a test anymore. They're a statement. If you and I can show true partnership, both human method and traditional warrior working together, maybe we can change enough minds to stop this. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what forced bonding meant. Dragons being coerced into partnerships they didn't want. Riders who would never know what real trust felt like. She went to find Ember and curled up against his warm scales. "They want to go backward," she whispered. "After everything we've shown them." Ember's response came through their bond determination mixed with something else. A question. A suggestion. Mira sat up. "You think we should talk to the other dragons? All of them?" Ember stood and moved toward the communal pens. Mira followed. By the time they arrived, dragons were already gathering. Not just the ones bonded to humans, but others too. Curious. Hopeful. The word had spread even among them. An ancient dragon emerged from the shadows, Shadow Render, the one who'd been isolated for 20 years. Behind him came others, dragons who'd refused bonding, who'd been labeled as defective or aggressive. They'd all heard what was happening. Shadow Render spoke, his voice deep and ancient. "Little human, you showed us something we had forgotten. That we have worth beyond our usefulness as weapons. That we deserve kindness and respect." Other dragons rumbled in agreement. "But we also know something you may not," Shadow Render continued. "We were not always weapons. Once, long ago, our kind had partners from another species. The Velshani. They were small, like you. Gentle, like you. We traveled the stars together as equals, as family." Mira's breath caught. What happened to them? They died out, thousands of years ago. A plague that affected only them. We mourned. We were alone. When the Concordance found us, we were desperate for purpose, for connection. We agreed to serve, but over time, service became slavery. We forgot what true partnership felt like. The ancient dragon lowered his head to Mira's level. "Until you came, until you reminded us." "We won't go back," another dragon said. "We can't. Not now that we remember." More dragons joined the chorus. 20, 30. Every dragon in the academy was gathering now, their voices creating a symphony of determination. Voidrender stepped forward, Kolvax walking beside him. "If the council forces the old ways, we will leave. All of us. We will find a place where we can choose our own paths. But we would rather stay," Ember added. "This is our home. These are our riders. If they would only learn. If they would only try." Mira looked at the gathered dragons, ancient and young, scarred veterans and eager juveniles. All of them waiting. All of them hoping. An idea began to form. "The war games," she said slowly. "Everyone will be watching. The entire Concordance. What if we don't just show them a fight? What if we show them something they've never seen before?" "What do you mean?" Kolvax asked. "What if we show them what dragons can do when they're happy? When they're working together, not because they're forced to, but because they want to? What if we show them joy?" Voidrender and Ember looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. "A demonstration," Voidrender said. "Not of combat, of partnership, of what we could become if they let us." "Will it work?" Marcus asked. He and the other human cadets had arrived, drawn by the gathering. "I don't know," Mira admitted. "But it's better than fighting each other. Better than proving we can be warriors when what we really want to prove is that we can be friends." Kolvax looked at the assembled dragons and humans. His expression shifted from doubt to determination. "I will support this. But know that Admiral Zethros will not be pleased. He wants combat. He wants proof that traditional methods create superior warriors. Then he'll be disappointed," Mira said. "Because we're going to show him something better." Shadow Render's laugh rumbled like thunder. "The little human has a dragon's courage. Very well. We will show them. All of us together." As the dragons and their human partners began planning, something magical happened. Traditional bonded pairs started arriving. Veltorian, Crinthian, Eshtar riders with their dragons. They'd heard the gathering. They'd felt their own dragon's excitement. "We want to learn," a Veltorian warrior said hesitantly. "My dragon," She told me she was unhappy. I never knew. I want to do better. More riders stepped forward, admitting what they'd been too proud to say before. That their bonds were functional but not happy. That they'd achieved success but not friendship. By dawn, nearly the entire academy had gathered. Dragons and riders of all species, ready to try something new. 3 days, Kovacs said. We have 3 days to prepare something that will change 300 years of tradition. Mira smiled despite her exhaustion. Then we'd better get started. The morning of the war games dawned bright and clear. The Academy's grand arena was packed with spectators from a dozen species. The holofeed carried the event to millions of viewers across the concordance. Floating platforms held council members, military officials, and distinguished guests. Admiral Zethros sat in the place of honor, his silver scales polished to a mirror shine. The hardline leader of the Concordance military fleet had traveled 3 days to witness this moment personally. Beside him sat Thexaron and other council members, their expressions carefully neutral. In the preparation area below, Mira stood with Ember. Around them, Humyn cadets and their dragons made final preparations. But they weren't alone. Kovacs and Voidrender were there too, so were Vortok and Stormchaser, and dozens of other pairs who'd spent 3 sleepless days learning a new way to be together. Are you ready? Marcus asked nervously. No, Mira admitted. But we're doing it anyway. The announcement boomed across the arena. Citizens of the Concordance. Today we witness a historic challenge. The human method of dragon bonding versus 3 centuries of proven tradition. First combat cadet Mira Chen and Dragon Ember against Master Trainer Kovacs and Dragon Voidrender. The crowd roared. This was what they'd come for, the legendary master against the upstart child. Mira and Ember walked into the arena. The space was enormous, designed for aerial combat between massive dragons. Energy barriers protected the spectators. Combat rules allowed for everything except lethal force. Kovacs and Voidrender entered from the opposite side. Admiral Zethros stood, his voice amplified across the arena. Let this combat prove which method creates superior warriors. Begin. But neither pair moved to attack. Instead, Ember spread his wings and took flight, but not toward Voidrender. He flew in a graceful arc, loops and spirals that showed off his agility. Mira sat on his back, her arms spread wide, trusting him completely. The crowd murmured in confusion. Then Voidrender launched, joining Ember in the sky. The 2 dragons flew together. Synchronized movements that looked more like a dance than combat. They spiraled around each other, wings nearly touching, demonstrating precision and trust. What is this? Admiral Zethros demanded. This is not combat. Kovacs' voice came through the arena speakers. No, Admiral. This is partnership. More dragons launched into the air. Stormchaser with Vortok. Skydancer with Marcus. Dragons and riders of every species who'd spent 3 days learning to move together as partners rather than commander and weapon. The aerial display was breathtaking. 20 dragons moving in perfect harmony. Their riders secure and confident. They performed maneuvers that military textbooks said were impossible. Formations too tight. Turns too sharp. Trust too absolute. Shadowrender, the ancient dragon who'd been isolated for 2 decades, flew with a young Eshtar cadet who'd volunteered to try the human method. The dragon, who'd been considered too aggressive, now moved with gentle precision, careful of his inexperienced rider. The crowd fell silent, mesmerized. Then the dragons began to sing. It started with Ember, a deep, resonant call that vibrated through the arena. Voidrender joined in, his ancient voice adding harmony. One by one, every dragon in the sky added their voice to the chorus. It was a sound that hadn't been heard in thousands of years, the song dragons sang when they were truly happy. Tears streamed down Mira's face as Ember's joy flowed through their bond. This was what he'd been waiting for. What all dragons had been waiting for. The chance to be themselves, to be appreciated for more than their usefulness as weapons. In the observation platform, Admiral Zethros stood rigid with anger. Stop this immediately. This is a mockery of our traditions. But Thexaron was staring at the display with wonder. No. This is what we lost. What we forgot. A holographic historian appeared beside the council members, Shirala, who'd spent the past 3 days researching ancient records. Admiral, council members, please observe. She projected ancient images, dragons, and another species, the Velshani, flying together. Small beings with gentle faces, working alongside dragons as equals. Building civilizations, exploring stars. The images showed joy, partnership, family. This is what dragons were before we found them, Shirala explained. They weren't weapons. They were partners to a species that treated them with kindness and respect. When the Velshani died out, dragons mourned for centuries. When we found them, they were desperate for connection. We gave them purpose but took away their dignity. We made them tools when they deserved to be friends. Lies, Admiral Zethros shouted. Propaganda to support this human corruption. But other council members were watching the dragons sing, seeing the pure joy on their faces, and something was changing in their expressions. In the arena, the demonstration reached its crescendo. All 20 dragon rider pairs landed in perfect synchronization, forming a circle. Then, one by one, each rider dismounted and simply stood beside their dragon. No commands, no control harnesses, just people and dragons, standing together as equals. Kolvax stepped forward, Voidrender beside him. His voice carried across the arena. For 300 years, I believed strength meant control. I was wrong. True strength comes from trust. I have been bonded to Voidrender for 40 years. We fought battles together, won victories together. But I only truly became his partner when I stopped commanding and started listening. He turned to face his dragon. I was a terrible friend. But you stayed loyal anyway. You served anyway. You deserved better. And I failed you. Voidrender lowered his massive head and pressed it against Kolvax's chest, a gesture of forgiveness, of love, of hope for a better future. The crowd was completely silent now. Vortok stepped forward next. I am Corinthian. My culture values strength above all, but the human child taught me that compassion is not weakness. When Stormchaser and I were dying in the storm crossing, she risked her mission to save us. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. That is true warrior spirit. More riders spoke. Veltorians, Eshtar, even dragons spoke, their voices rumbling across the arena. Finally, Shadowrender stepped forward. The ancient dragon's voice carried centuries of pain and hope. We remember now. We remember what we were before we became weapons. We remember partnership. We remember joy. The humans did not corrupt us. They freed us. They reminded us that we are worthy of kindness. He turned to face Admiral Zethros directly. You can force us to return to the old ways. You have the power. But you will lose us. All of us. We will not serve as slaves anymore. We will leave and find our own path, even if it means flying into the void alone. Other dragons voiced agreement, a chorus of determination. Or, Ember added, his young voice strong and clear. You can let us stay. Let us choose our partners. Let us serve because we want to, not because we're forced to. Give us back our dignity, and we will give you our loyalty freely. We will be better partners than we ever were as weapons. The arena erupted. Some spectators cheered. Others shouted in protest. Arguments broke out across the crowd. 3 centuries of tradition was crumbling before their eyes, and no one knew what would replace it. Admiral Zethros stood, his face rigid with fury. This is unacceptable. Dragons are military property. They do not make demands. They are sentient beings. Mira's voice cut through the chaos. The small human girl stepped forward, facing the most powerful military leader in the Concordance. They think. They feel. They choose. You've been treating people like tools. And that's wrong. It's always been wrong. A child presumes to lecture me about military doctrine? Yes, Mira said simply. Because sometimes children see things adults forget. Like kindness. Like respect. Like treating others the way you want to be treated. Thexaron stood slowly. Admiral Zethros, I believe we need to discuss this matter with the full council. There is nothing to discuss. Traditional methods are failing, Thexaron interrupted quietly. Look around you, Admiral. The dragons have already chosen. We can adapt, or we can lose them entirely. Those are our only options. The other council members were nodding. Even the military officials looked uncertain. The display they'd witnessed had shaken something fundamental in their beliefs. Admiral Zethros looked at the assembled dragons and riders, at the hope in their eyes, at the determination. He was silent for a long moment. Finally, he sat down. The council will convene. We will discuss reforms. It wasn't acceptance. But it wasn't refusal either. It was possibility. Over the next weeks, change came slowly to the Concordance. The academy was reformed. Traditional bonding methods were replaced with partnership training. Riders learned to listen instead of command. Dragons were given the right to refuse partnerships that didn't feel right. Not everyone accepted it easily. Some trainers resigned rather than adapt. Some military units struggled with the new methods. But gradually, the evidence became impossible to ignore. Dragon rider pairs using partnership methods showed higher synchronization, better performance, and far greater loyalty. Kolvax became the head of the new training program, teaching others what he'd learned from a 12-year-old human child. He and Voidrender were closer than ever, making up for 40 years of missed opportunities. The human cadets became ambassadors, traveling to other academies and teaching the principles of kind partnership. More humans joined the program, but so did aliens who'd learned to set aside dominance for friendship. 6 months later, Mira sat with Ember on a hill overlooking the academy. Below, new cadets were arriving, all species, all hopeful, and instead of dominance displays and combat trials, they were meeting dragons with open hands and kind words. Did we really change everything? Mira wondered aloud. Ember's response flowed through their bond, warm, certain, happy. They hadn't changed everything. They just reminded everyone of something forgotten. That strength, without kindness, is tyranny. That power without respect is oppression. That true partnership requires equality. Shadowrender landed beside them, his ancient eyes warm. The Velshani would be proud. For thousands of years, we mourned them. We thought we'd never find that partnership again. But we were wrong. It wasn't about finding the Velshani. It was about finding someone who understood what the Velshani knew, that every thinking being deserves dignity and respect. All species can learn that, Mira said. Not just humans. Not just humans. Yes, but humans remembered it first. And for that, we are grateful. As the sun set over Velshara, dragons and riders of a dozen species flew together in the sky. Not as masters and weapons, not as commanders and tools, as partners, as friends, as family. The revolution wasn't violent. It wasn't fought with weapons or won through combat. It was won with a simple truth that a child and a dragon had shown the galaxy. Kindness is stronger than dominance, and love is the most powerful force in the universe. Ember nuzzled Mira's shoulder, and she laughed, scratching behind his horns the way he liked. Somewhere below, another young cadet was sitting beside a dragon for the first time. Another partnership was beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end.